December 18, 1972, Andersen Air Force Base, Guam. The air is hot, thick, and saturated with salt. Inside a cavernous briefing room, the atmosphere is electric, packed with hundreds of men in olive-drab flight suits. They are the crews of the B-52 Stratofortress. They are the polished tip of the spear, the elite of the Strategic Air Command, SAC, the most powerful destructive force in human history. A one-star general stands at the podium. "Gentlemen," his voice booms, "the president has had enough. The talks in Paris have failed. Your target is Hanoi." A low murmur fills the room. This is it. This is the big one. For years, the B-52s, known as Buffs, big, ugly, fat, would bomb the jungles of the South. Hanoi was different. It was the heart of the enemy, and it was defended by the densest anti-aircraft artillery and surface-to-air missile network on Earth. But the general quickly raises his hand, a confident smirk on his face. "I know what you're thinking. SAMs. Let's be clear. The enemy's SAM-2 system is a 1950s-era relic. They are, as you know, flying telephone poles." A few chuckles ripple through the room. The pilots of the F-4 Phantom and F-105 Thunderchief fighter bombers had been dodging these things for years. But the B-52 was not a fighter, it was a fortress, and it had an invisible shield. The general points to a new slide. It's a simple graphic of 3 B-52s. You will fly in cells of 3. Your primary defense is not your tail gunner. It is your EWO, the electronic warfare officer. This is why SAC was so arrogant. Each B-52 carried a revolutionary suite of high-powered jammers, designated AN-ALT-28. When 3 B-52s flew in formation, their jammers would overlap, creating a massive electronic corridor of white noise. For a Vietnamese fan song radar operator on the ground, his screen would just disappear. He would be blinded, deafened, unable to achieve the lock necessary to guide his SAM-2 missile. It was, in theory, a perfect, impenetrable electronic gauntlet. The U.S. Air Force had run simulations. They had tested it. They were so confident that they made a fateful decision. They didn't even need the specialized Wild Weasel squadrons, the F-4s and F-105s whose sole job was to hunt and kill SAM sites. The SAC generals wanted to prove once and for all that the B-52 needed no protection. It was its own protector. In one of those flight suits sits Captain Robert Bud Cope, an EWO on a B-52 crewed by men all in their 20s. He checks his charts. He trusts his equipment. The science is sound. The mission is straightforward. Fly in, drop 30 tons of bombs, fly out. The flying telephone poles wouldn't be able to touch them. One by one, they roar into the sky. Dozens of them, a stream of invincible fortresses, 8 engines apiece, thundering north on an 8,000-mile round trip. Hours later, 30,000 feet over the Gulf of Tonkin. "Check in, EWO," the pilot's voice crackles over the intercom. "Roger," Cope replies. He flips the switches. Jammers are green. Shield is up. As they cross the Vietnamese coast, Cope's RHWG gear lights up. It's the fan song radars, waking up. He can hear them desperately searching, sweeping, trying to find a target. But they can't. The scope is just a mess of green static. The shield is holding. "They're painting us, Skipper," Culp reports, "but they have no lock. I repeat, no lock. The corridor is queen." "Piece of cake," the pilot mutters. Simultaneously, a damp concrete bunker 15 miles outside Hanoi. The air is cold and smells of wet earth and ozone. Lieutenant Colonel Dinh Van of the 261 Vietnamese Missile Regiment stares at his own radar screen. It is exactly as the Americans planned, a useless, blinding wall of white noise. He can't see a single B-52. His commanders are screaming at him over the field phone. Where are they? The observers can hear them. Why are you not firing? The Americans were mocking them. They believed the Vietnamese were primitives swatting at a ghost. But Dinh Van and his crews had spent months studying this static. They had trained for this. They weren't looking for the B-52s. They were looking for the seam in their invisibility. They had noticed something in the simulations, a tiny flaw. When the B-52 made its final turn after dropping its bombs, the angle of the bank would briefly change the orientation of its jamming antennas. For just 3 or 4 seconds, the static would dip. A shadow would appear. They called this technique bak neo, parting the chaff. It required insane timing and a willingness to die, as the missile had to be fired into the noise almost blind. Dinh Van holds his hand up for silence. He watches the blizzard. He waits. Wait for the turn, he whispers to his tracking officer. Wait for the shadow.
January 18th, 1972. 30,000 feet over Hanoi, a city in total blackout. On the radar scope of the B-52 Charcoal 01, the target, a railway yard, is perfectly illuminated. Target acquired, the bombardier calls out, his voice calm. Doors open. A hydraulic rumble shudders through the airframe. Bombs away. The giant aircraft, suddenly 60,000 pounds lighter, lurches upward. For the crew, the most dangerous part of the mission is over. Now they just have to go home. Hard left turn, skipper, the navigator instructs. Post target egress route. Roger, the pilot says. He banks the enormous 185-foot wingspan of the Stratofortress into the coordinated turn. It is the exact moment Lieutenant Colonel Dinh Van has been waiting for. Down in the bunker, the wall of static on his radar scope flickers. For just a second, the solid white blizzard thins, and inside it, a shadow moves, a faint, ghostly blip. It is the B-52, its jammers momentarily masked by its own fuselage as it turns. Target! Dinh Van's tracking officer screams, his voice cracking. Lock! Lock now! Dinh Van roars. Fire! This is the fast fire technique, a near suicidal gamble. The crew in the fan-song guidance fan has 15 seconds. They switch on their high-powered guidance radar, knowing it's a death sentence if an American wild weasel is nearby. But the Americans, in their arrogance, sent no weasels. The radar locks. The signal screams. Bon! Fire! From a hidden muddy revetment, a 35-foot-long V-750 missile, the SAM-2, erupts on a pillar of fire. It is a plume of bright orange, visible from miles, accelerating at Mach 3, climbing 1,000 feet per second. Inside Charcoal 01, Captain Culp sees his threat board light up in a way he has never seen it before. It is not the vague, searching signal. It is a solid, terrifying, high-pitched screech. The sound of a fan-song guidance radar locked onto them. Lock! Lock! Culp screams into the intercom. It's a solid lock! It's not possible! What? The pilot yells back. The shield is up! It's a lock! It's guiding! Then the tail gunner's voice, high and panicked. Missile! Missile! 6 o'clock low! It's coming! It's tracking us! The pilot throws the giant plane into a desperate dive, a maneuver B-52s were never designed to do. The airframe groans, but the flying telephone pole, guided by an unbroken radar beam, is too fast. The missile does not strike the plane, it doesn't need to. Its proximity fuse detonates just below the right wing. The 400-pound warhead explodes, spraying 16,000 steel fragments in a lethal cloud. The fragments rip through the wing like paper. Inside the cockpit, the world turns to fire. The master warning panel lights up like a Christmas tree. Engine 3 and 4 on fire! We're losing hydraulic pressure! We're going in! Bail out! Bail out! Bail out! The B-52, the $8 million 1972 Invincible Fortress, cartwheels out of the sky. It disintegrates into a massive blossoming fireball that illuminates the clouds for 50 miles. On the radio, there is a second of pure, stunned silence. Then, the panic. Jesus Christ, Charcoal 01 is hit! It's gone! It exploded! Who's hit? Who's hit? Mayday! Mayday! We just lost a buff! In the B-52 Brown 03 flying right behind, the crew watches the fireball bloom where their friends were seconds before. They are flying directly into the kill zone. "Skipper, turn! Get us out of here!" The co-pilot screams. "I can't!" the pilot shouts. "We have to follow the egress route. SAC protocol. Maintain formation. The shield will... He doesn't get to finish. Down in Dinvan's bunker, they are not celebrating. They are reloading. "Target 2! The shadow! It's turning!" "Lock! Fire!" Another SAM-2 streaks into the night. On Brown 03, the lock is instantaneous. "Missile! Missile!" Another explosion. Another fireball. In the span of 5 minutes, 2 of the most powerful weapons in the American arsenal have been swatted from the sky. Strategic Air Command. Headquarters, Offutt Basic Air Force Base, Nebraska. Half a world away. In the $10 million underground bunker known as the Deep Hole, generals in crisp blue uniforms stare at a massive wall-sized electronic map. 2 of the green dots, representing Charcoal 01 and Brown 03, have just turned red, then vanished. A SAC general known for his iron will turns to an intel aide. What just happened? "Sir," the aide stammers, we've lost contact with Charcoal and Brown cells. The last transmission was missile lock." The general is pale. "That's impossible. Get me the EWO logs. The jammers work. It must be a malfunction, a mid-air collision." But as he speaks, a third dot turns red. Peach 02, hit by debris, is limping away, on fire. The mockery has stopped. The flying telephone poles had just punched through the invincible iron gauntlet. The war in the sky had just changed, and the arrogance of SAC had just been given a name: catastrophe.
January 18th, 1972. 3 a.m. Utapao, Royal Thai Air Force Base, Thailand. The first of the B-52s, the ones that survived the initial volley, begin their emergency landings. Peach 02 is the first. It's a miracle it's still flying. The aircraft has over 200 shrapnel holes. Its landing gear barely deploys. As it shudders to a stop, the crew tumbles out, some kissing the tarmac. The tail gunner, a 19-year-old sergeant, is carried out on a stretcher, his leg mangled by a fragment. The debriefing room is the scene of controlled pandemonium. These are not the confident, cocky SAC crews from 12 hours ago. These are haunted men. They didn't just fire one. A pilot, his face pale and streaked with sweat, shouts at a stunned intelligence officer. They fired barrages, 5s, 6s. They were waiting for us. And they weren't blind, yells Captain Culp, The EWO who survived. I'm telling you, I got a solid lock warning, louder and clearer than any training exercise. It shouldn't be possible. The EWOs, the electronic wizards who were supposed to be the invisible shield, are the most shaken. They had put their faith in a system, in the laws of physics and electronics. And tonight, that faith was shattered. They had watched their threat boards light up, not with the static of a searching radar, but with the solid, terrifying screech of a missile lock. The evidence is overwhelming. The Vietnamese crews knew their turn points. They had a way to see through the ECM. The shield was broken. The reports are flashed top secret across the globe to the SAC command bunker in Nebraska. The loss of 3 B-52s, with 2 more heavily damaged in a single wave, is a statistical impossibility. It is the worst single-night loss in SAC's history. Strategic Air Command, SAC, HQ, Nebraska, 4 a.m. Central Time. General John C. Meyer, the Commander-in-Chief of SAC, reads the after-action reports. Meyer is a legend. He is an old-school, iron-willed disciplinarian who believes SAC is the most perfect military organization ever created. He reads the EWO reports. He reads the pilot testimonies. He sees the words solid lock, penetrated, ambush, and he comes to a conclusion. They're wrong, he says, his voice quiet. An aide looks up, confused. Sir? The EWOs, the pilots, they're wrong. Sir, the data from 5 different crews suggests... The data suggests they panicked, Meyer snaps. His voice is ice. This is the central, fatal moment of arrogance. For General Meyer, it was not possible for the multi-billion-dollar ECM technology to fail. The system was perfect. And if the system is perfect, any failure must be human. A 1950s flying telephone pole does not shoot down a B-52, Meyer declares, rising from his chair. A B-52 cell, properly flown, is invincible. The only way they could have been hit is if they broke formation. They saw the first missile, they panicked, and they scattered. They broke the shield. The reports from the EWOs, the men who were there, are dismissed. The terrified pleas of the pilots are reinterpreted as confessions of cowardice. General Meyer believed his men had failed him, not the other way around. He picks up a red phone. Get me the 8th Air Force. I have their orders for Night 2. His decision, born of this technological hubris, will turn a disaster into a meat grinder. Anderson Air Force Base, Guam, 24 hours later. It is the briefing for Night 2. The mood in the room is not tense. It is funereal. The crews who flew Night 1 are there, their eyes hollow. The new crews, who heard the stories and saw the empty bunkers, are rigid with fear. The same general stands at the podium. His confident smirk is gone. He reads from a teletype message, his voice flat. This is from SAC. Night 1 analysis indicates losses were a result of deviations from tactical doctrine. Cell integrity was not maintained. A low, angry groan fills the room. You're kidding me, a pilot whispers. The general continues. Mission for Night 2. Targets, Hanoi. Exit routes, identical to Night 1. Post-target turns, identical to Night 1. It is the most insane, terrifying order a pilot can receive. They are being commanded to fly into the exact same ambush that killed their friends using the exact same tactics that got them killed. But there's one more line.
All crews will maintain rigid formation. Any deviation will be subject to court-martial. The message is clear. The system didn't fail. You failed. Don't fail again. Captain Bud Culp, the EWO, looks at his charts. He now knows his invincible shield is a lie. He knows there is a shadow in the static, and the enemy knows where it is. He and hundreds of other men, bound by the iron discipline of SAC, walk out of the briefing room and into the hot, humid night. They are walking, knowingly, into a trap, set not only by the Vietnamese, but by their own commanders.
December 19th, 1972. 30,000 feet over Hanoi. The mood inside the B-52s on Night 2 is not tension, it is dread. It is the cold, silent terror of men who know they are flying a machine that is a coffin. Maintain cell integrity, the lead pilot's voice crackles, flat and emotionless over the command channel. Do not, I repeat, do not deviate. They are flying perfectly. Their formations are immaculate. They are the most disciplined, well-trained airmen in the world, and they are flying with textbook precision directly into the heart of the shadow ambush. They are doing exactly what their commanders ordered, and in doing so, they are committing mass suicide. On the ground, the 261 Missile Regiment bunker. Lieutenant Colonel Ding Van is back at his radar scope. He was not sure the Americans would come. He assumed they would change routes, change altitudes. Then his Spoon Rest acquisition radar picks them up. A tracker, his voice filled with disbelief, calls out, "Comrade Colonel, they are on the same heading, the exact same heading." Ding Van cannot believe his luck. It is not a trap. It is a gift. The arrogance of the American command is something he could never have planned for. He orders, his voice now cold as steel. "All battalions, they are coming. Wait for the turn. Wait for the shadow." This time there is no hesitation. There is no gambling. It is a simple, mechanical execution. Prepare to fire everything. Above the city. The B-52 Rose 01 is the first to the post-target turn point. "Bombs away," the bombardier calls. "Initiating egress turn," the pilot says, his knuckles white on the yoke. Inside his console, the EWO, a 23-year-old named Tom Allen, watches his threat board. It is quiet, too quiet, just the low hum of his own jammers. "Looks clean, Skipper," he reports, his voice wavering. "Here we go," the pilot mutters. He banks the plane. The instant the wing dips, Allen's board explodes. It's not one SAM, it's 10, it's 20. "Lock! Lock! Lock! Multiple locks! Everyone is locked!" "Jammer's full," the pilot yells. "Brake! Brake left!" "But I can't! SAC said—" "To hell with SAC!" But it is too late. From the ground, the sky erupts. It is not one or two missiles. The Vietnamese, now certain of their tactic, have launched a full-on barrage. The sky is filled with rising telephone poles of fire. "Missiles everywhere!" the tail gunner shrieks. 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock. "Oh my God!" Rose 01 doesn't stand a chance. A missile tears its tail off. The plane ignites, a fireball. Olive 02, flying beside it, takes a direct hit to the fuselage. It vanishes. No mayday, no survivors. Brass 01, its EWO screaming, manages to dodge 2 missiles. A third one detonates below its wing, ripping it open. The pilot fights for control as the plane depressurizes violently. "Mayday! Mayday! Brass 01 is hit! We are going down!" "Who is hit? Who is talking?" "Rose is gone.
Olive is gone! They're wiping us out! It is a massacre. The B-52s, locked in their rigid, disciplined formations, are nothing but targets in a shooting gallery. The invincible shield of ECM, the technology the generals in Nebraska had bet their men's lives on, was utterly, completely useless. The EWOs could do nothing but watch their screens scream at them as they died. SAC Headquarters, Nebraska. The scene from Night 1 repeats, but this time it is a nightmare. The green dots on the big board are not just blinking red, they are vanishing, one after another. Sir, we've lost Rose Cell. Sir, Olive 02 is not responding. Sir, Brass 01 is reporting they're bailing out. The blood drains from General Meyer's face. He is standing, frozen, watching his entire strategic air fleet, his life's work, being systematically dismantled by 1950s Soviet technology. He cannot blame pilot error now. He cannot blame panic. He ordered them to fly that way. The silence in the command bunker is absolute. The generals, the aides, the technicians, they are all watching the board, realizing in real time the colossal scale of their own arrogance. 6 B-52s are shot down. Several more are heavily damaged. It is a catastrophe. It is an unmitigated slaughter. The iron discipline of SAC, its greatest strength, has just become its most fatal weakness. The system had failed. The mockery of the flying telephone poles was over. The B-52 was not a fortress. It was a target, and the men inside it were sacrifices.
December 20th, 1972, 4 a.m., Utapao, Thailand. The flight line is a scene from a charnel house. B-52s, those that made it back, are riddled with shrapnel. One, Scarlet 03, has a 5-foot, unexploded SAM-2 missile lodged in its wing. The crew hadn't even known it was there. But the real story is in the debriefing rooms. This time, the crews are not angry. They are not scared. They are zombies. They are men who have faced certain death and survived by pure random luck. An intelligence officer asks a pilot to describe the post-target turn. The pilot, a 28-year-old major, just stares at him, his hands shaking, unable to speak. A message is quietly passed from crew to crew on the flight line. We're not going. If they order the same mission, we are not getting back in the planes. It is not a revolt. It is not mutiny. It is a simple statement of fact. The iron discipline of SAC, the bedrock of its entire philosophy, has been shattered by 2 nights of suicidal orders. The men are broken. SAC Headquarters, Nebraska, the deep hole. General Meyer is staring at the casualty report. 9 B-52s are confirmed lost in 48 hours. Another 8 are mission killed, too damaged to fly. He's lost 17 of his $8 million Invincible bombers. Over 100 elite SAC airmen are dead, captured, or missing. The war is, for the moment, lost. The red phone rings. It is the White House Situation Room. General, the voice of Henry Kissinger, is sharp and cold. The president wants to know what in the hell you are doing. He is reading wire reports of B-52s falling from the sky. This is not what you promised. Meyer, the Iron General, has no answer. His perfect system, his perfect tactics, and his perfect men have all failed. His arrogance has been exposed on a global stage. He hangs up the phone. "Ground them," he orders, his voice a low rasp. "Ground the B-52 fleet. All Linebacker II missions are suspended." It is the single most humiliating order in the history of the Strategic Air Command. The Invincible Fortress has been defeated. The flying telephone poles have won. But the war is not over. Meyer, though broken, is still a commander. Get me the 7th Air Force. Get me General Vogt, now. General Vogt is the commander of the Tactical Air Command in Southeast Asia. He is the man in charge of the fighter bombers and the wild weasels. This phone call is the ultimate humiliation. The strategic SAC generals, who look down on the tactical pilots as undisciplined hotshots, are now asking for help. They are admitting their multi-billion-dollar shield is broken, and they need to be rescued by the very men they had dismissed. "General Vogt," Meyer begins, "we have a SAM problem." Vogt, who had been screaming for weeks that SAC's tactics were insane, simply replied, "We know. What do you need?" "I need your weasels," Meyer says, "all of them. I need you to go in first. I need you to clear a path." The replanning. 24-hour stand-down. The war stops. For a full day and night, the B-52s sit silent on their runways. The entire Linebacker II campaign is rewritten from scratch. The SAC playbook is thrown in the garbage. The arrogance is gone, replaced by a desperate, cold fury. The new plan is not a disciplined SAC operation. It is an all-out, brutal combined arms brawl. 1. No more same routes. The B-52s will no longer fly in one single predictable stream. They will attack from multiple directions, from Thailand and Guam, and at multiple, staggered altitudes to confuse the Fansong radars. 2. No more S-turns. The long, slow, predictable post-target turns, the shadow ambush, are eliminated. And 3. Maximum force. And most importantly, the B-52s will no longer go in alone. They are sending in the cavalry. F-111s will go in low to bomb the MiG airfields. F-4 Phantoms will provide chaff corridors. And leading the entire pack, the wild weasels will go in first. Their mission, simple: get the SAM sites to shoot at them. The weasel crews are a different breed. Their unofficial motto, "You got to be shittin' me." They are hunters. Their job is to be the bait. Night 3, a weasel pilot briefs his EW. Gonna be a party. The Buffs stirred up the hornet's nest. Now we get to go kick it. The Invincible Fortress is no longer the spearhead. It is now just precious cargo, cowering behind a wall of smaller, more aggressive, and more agile fighters. The mockery is complete.
December 21st, 1972, 11 p.m. The skies over North Vietnam. This is not a mission. It is an invasion. The sky is a complex, three-dimensional battlefield filled with over 120 aircraft. The rigid, predictable cells of B-52s are gone. replaced by a symphony of destruction. Leading the way are the wild weasels. First in, last out. That's the weasel way. An F-105 pilot, call sign Viper 1, says to his EWO, the electronic warfare officer, the Bear. Bear, I got a fan song painting us, 8 o'clock high. Roger, Viper, the Bear's voice is calm. I have the strobe, it's hot, they're guiding. Good, the pilot says. He rolls his F-105 inverted and dives. They're ours, firing Shrike. Down in Dinsvan's bunker, the fan song operator sees a new terrifying warning light. A Shrike is inbound. He has less than 10 seconds to make an impossible choice. If he keeps his radar on to guide his SAM-2 at the B-52, the Shrike will kill him. If he shuts down his radar to save himself, the B-52 gets through. Shut down! Shut down! He screams. The fan song radar blips off. The Shrike, its brain suddenly blind, loses its lock and flies harmlessly into a rice paddy. But 2 miles away, another SAM crew, desperate to score a kill, keeps their radar on for 3 seconds too long. Got him, the weasel pilot yells. The Shrike locks, dives, and obliterates the SAM van in a massive white fireball. This is the new battle. The weasels have kicked the nest. The sky is a lethal chaos of missiles firing at missiles, of radar beams switching on and off in a desperate electronic game of cat and mouse. Into this hornet's nest, the B-52s arrive. They are flying from multiple directions, at staggered altitudes. Their jammers are on, but they are no longer an invincible shield. They are just one more layer of confusion. Inside Braz 04, the EWO, Captain Culp, is still terrified. His threat board is lit up, screaming. Multiple locks, 6 o'clock, they're firing. I see 'em, the pilot yells, his voice tense. Hold on. The crew braces for impact. They're not guiding, the tail gunner shouts. Missiles are ballistic. They're flying blind. The weasels must have spooked 'em. The B-52s plow through the flak. The bomb bay doors open. Bombs away. The rail yards, power plants, and command bunkers in Hanoi are systematically, brutally obliterated. The B-52s turn and head for home. The B-52 losses for Night 3, 0. The B-52 losses for Night 4, 0. The B-52 losses for Night 5, 2. The new tactics, a combination of brute force and tactical humility, had broken the back of the SAM defense. The operation continued for another 8 days. The losses never again reached the catastrophic levels of the first 2 nights. The final, bloody tally for the 12-day campaign, 15 B-52s lost, 33 SAC airmen killed or missing in action. On December 29th, North Vietnam, its industrial and military infrastructure shattered, signaled it was ready to return to the negotiating table in Paris on the basis of the previously agreed-upon terms. The bombing stopped. A month later, the Paris Peace Accords were signed, ending America's direct involvement in the war. In the cold, hard calculus of war, the White House and SAC claimed victory. The B-52, they argued, had bombed them back to the table. The campaign, despite its losses, had worked. But this was a hollow, twisted victory. The real story, the one written in the fireballs of Night 1 and 2, was not one of triumph. It was one of profound, catastrophic failure. This is the core emotion. The B-52 was not an invincible fortress. It was a multi-million-dollar piece of technology that was defeated, soundly, by a 1950s-era missile, a simple turn, and a shadow on a radar screen.
The American commanders had mocked the flying telephone poles. They had laughed at the primitive tactics of their enemy. They had worshipped at the altar of their own technology, their perfect ECM systems, their invincible, ironclad doctrine. It was this technological arrogance that led directly to the slaughter. It was the blind faith in their own invincibility that turned their men into sacrifices. The B-52 did not win the battle. Adaptation won the battle. Humility won the battle. The final victory of the campaign was only possible after the generals were forced to abandon their sacred playbook, after their multi-billion-dollar shield was proven to be a myth. The reversal was total. The Invincible Fortress could only survive by cowering behind the very tactical fighters it had once dismissed. The mockery had been silenced not by the roar of 100 bombers, but by the humiliating, quiet realization that their faith was misplaced. They had built a perfect weapon for a perfect war, only to be shattered by the imperfect, desperate, and brilliant human will of the men on the ground.